Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Good morning, Bill.
Here we are.
Yes, we are.
I thought you were going to talk about rookettes.
No, I only do my spiels once.
Oh, okay.
We had a false start on the podcast for about a minute.
Okay.
We start again. I just do something else.
All right.
Sorry.
Episode number 146. How do I finance my first real estate deal?
Good question, Bill.
And it's not just the first either.
Oh, that's good. You don't have to take the first to do the second and the second to do the third?
No.
Okay.
So here we go. It's so funny to me that when most folks think of buying real estate, the first question they ask is, who's got the money? Right? Mm-hmm. What's unbelievable to me is maybe 1 out of 100 investors, 1 out of 100, Peter, really get how backwards this truly is. And this podcast, we're going to talk about why this one wrong question keeps thousands upon thousands of people from investing in the most incredible business on planet Earth, real estate. It's safe, predictable, reliable, and most important, lucrative. Agreed?
Sure.
And there is plenty for everyone once you understand how to fund as many deals as you can find. In fact, it is almost impossible not to succeed once we share with you how to fund these deals in this episode.
I like that word. It's funny. When you talk, well, probably anybody talks, certain things jump out and the rest of the sentence goes blank.
Okay.
I heard not impossible. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Besides that, many have taken our advanced techniques and pulled $10,000 months by these special techniques. Okay?
Making $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually did that one time as a podcast. We actually did that as a $10,000 a month technique.
Yep.
Right.
I remember. Yeah.
And I get support tickets and all kinds of stuff from people that are telling me that they're doing deals, and that's actually amazing.
Yeah, $10,000 a month, not shabby.
Yeah. Question now is, will you listen and be ready? Right? Will you listen and be ready?
Gee, Bill, that's 2 things you're asking of us.
So here we go. So before I start, I just want to preface that this is not, we did this in a 30-minute episode on episode number 114, and I covered bare minimum about how to find funds, where to find money for real estate. Today's episode is not going to be 60 minutes. I'm going to try, but it's not going to be 60 minutes. Okay, we're going to run, it's not going to be 3 hours, but it's not going to be 60 minutes. So before you even start, make sure you know that this podcast, I'm going to cover some explicit detail. We're going to go over quite a bit of stuff. If I can do it in 60 minutes, then hooray. If I can't, I just want you to know up front, it's probably going to be a little bit longer than that. So just make sure you're prepared to listen to the whole thing, because honestly, I believe 1 in 100 investors, once they get this, what we're going to talk about today, they become the salient or most prevalent or busiest guy in their area. And it's because of what we're going to talk about in this episode.
Gee, Bill, it sounds like the folks should get paper and pencil out.
Yeah. And you should definitely listen to it more than once. Matter of fact, Em and I are in the middle of publishing. I've got, I think, 3 books right now, or 4 books. 3 or 4, I don't remember what it is. Already written and in the publishing stage.
Right.
This is going to be the next.
Cool.
Just because I have so much feedback with how do you find money.
It's got to be the biggest problem, if only in people's minds, that stops them from even starting or considering it. Oh, can't do that.
Right.
Before they even look. Can't do that.
So let's just jump right into it. So not knowing where to get the money to do a real estate deal, just like you were talking about, keeps a lot of people out of business and unfortunately costs them their financial freedom because of that one little barrier. And it's not even an unreal barrier. It's a common sense thing. Like, I want to buy real estate. Where am I going to get the money? Right? It's no different than, I want to go down to Walmart and buy a new kitchen table. Where am I going to get the money?
Sure.
This is not like that. And that's the first thing you have to understand is, this is not like, I want to buy something on Amazon. Here's my card. In other words, how am I going to pay for it? First thing you have to understand about this game is that real estate is an asset. Okay? So assets are, what the definition of an asset is that you buy something and it gives you back more than what you put in. Mm-hmm. So if you buy an asset for $100, whether it's immediately or over time or whatever, whatever terms or whatever time period, it gives you back more than $100.
Right.
So, a lot of folks have trouble with debt. I don't want to be in debt. Well, those are folks that went in debt for liabilities. A liability is like a car. It's like you pay your car payment, $300 a month, and all you get is a ride back and forth to work.
Right, and a depreciation. Well,
right.
And a loss of value in the car.
Right.
Right.
So it doesn't bring you back money. So you put out $300 a month, and you don't get back $500 a month. Mm-hmm. Right? So the best thing in the world is to surround yourself with asset debt because that's what's going to produce you the most amount of passive income. Passive meaning a lot of people think that you can just set it and forget it. It's not really that way. But if you're working 40 hours a week now to make, $1,000 a week, we'll say, which would be good,
yep.
Right? Maybe you can work 5 hours a week or 3 hours a week or 10 hours a week instead of 40 to make that same money.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
No, you were doing that. You were collecting rents and getting money. It's like, I got to run around. But geez, Bill, still.
Right.
Spend a few hours to make a few grand. It's not a terrible thing.
Right.
It's great if it just walked in the door, but if you have to chase it a little bit or, do some work on it, it's still not horrible.
And that's the philosophy with my rental properties. It's like I make $4 or $5 grand a month on rental properties, and I only have to spend 15 hours a week doing it. Then who wouldn't do that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so,
and then you refine it to get it more efficient as you go, and it gets even better.
Yeah. So before we talk about where you get the money, I want to discuss what you would do if you had it.
If you had the money.
Yeah. What would you do if you had it? Okay. Now, before we could talk about what you would do if you had it, we have to talk about what you would do, what you shouldn't do if you have it, which is the reason why you have the money.
You talking about spending it or investing it if you had money?
Either way.
Yeah, either one? Okay.
Well, investing in it, I guess.
Yeah, more investing? Okay.
Okay.
Because that way you make more.
Well, we just talked about what you should do is you should spend it on assets.
Yeah.
So we're talking about buying assets.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just being sure.
So the first thing we wouldn't do this, is we wouldn't buy a pretty house or an attractive house in a nice neighborhood, priced at retail value, and pay cash for it.
Nope.
Just wouldn't do that.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah, but Bill, in the future, in 5-10 years, won't it make me money?
No.
That's not how to do it. People do that. That's not the way to go.
So, I've been reading some. I'm always reading new materials. I'm always listening to other people. I'm always buying stuff. I mean, I have to kind of shut myself off right now because I've bought too much stuff recently and I can't read it fast enough.
I like going by your kitchen table, seeing what's new this week. Maybe I can read that one after Bill.
Yeah, exactly. So, lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
So one of the things that I lost my train of thought. So, oh my God.
What's the last thing?
Yeah.
If you had, you were talking about you wouldn't buy a pretty house for all cash.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So
yeah.
One of the things that we talk about is you should, the same day that you buy a property, you should have equity.
Right.
And one of the things that one of the gurus I'm listening to now, which I don't want to name, is talking about having appreciation. Mm-hmm. We do not even have that. I mean, you and I have been together for years, and how many times have that word actually come out of our mouth? Never.
No.
It's not a part of it. If you get appreciation, which appreciation means you buy for $100,000 now, and 2 months from now it's worth $110,000. just because the market went up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I also believe that there's a lot of investors that are in the market not because they're smart, because the market's good.
Yeah, they get lucky.
And they're just lucky. Yeah. And they don't even know it. And then they get a little cocky. And I know a few of them. I can name them right now because they used to come around and they don't come around anymore. And they're rehabbers and they just think who they are because they're doing, 8 or 10 houses a year. Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to change. It doesn't, I don't know when, but it doesn't stay that way forever. You know what I mean? So
right.
The market's good and they're riding the wave.
Yeah, when it's easy like that, you get a house, flip it, make some money, it's easy to sell, you get your profit, you go home. But if the market changes, that may not work.
So now let's talk about these pretty houses or attractive houses in nice neighborhoods that you shouldn't buy, even if you had money, right? So these sellers don't want to or don't need to sell to you, right? They don't need to do a deep discount because there's no reason for them to do that. They have a pretty house in a nice neighborhood, and they have a buyer's market. Mm-hmm. In other words,
buyers or sellers?
No, they have a buyer's market. They have buyers out there that want to be in that neighborhood or want to be, right? Mm-hmm. So the only time that changes is if they don't have a pretty house in a pretty neighborhood, right? Or they have an ugly house in a pretty neighborhood, right? So the ideal scene is a beautiful house and a beautiful neighborhood. Mm-hmm. My sister just bought a condo, is moving to Florida, and she has that house.
Yeah.
She knows it. It's kind of interesting because you would think that she would come to me first about the real estate, but she doesn't. And I was kind of a little bit taken back. Like, why isn't she like, why? And I realized the other day, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, is because I realized she doesn't need me. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just put $30,000 in their kitchen. I mean, this house is only like, it's less than 2,000 square feet. It's probably 1,800 square feet. It's just a ranch. It's not even a raised ranch. It's just a ranch with a finished basement. I mean, it's nothing special.
Yeah.
But it's freaking beautiful. And it's in a stunning neighborhood. Great schools, great taxes, great city, all of it. So I realized after I walked away from having dinner from her, and I was thinking about on the ride home smoking my cigar, because we had steak.
Wow, steak and cigar. That's a good night, Bill.
Exactly. She doesn't need me because the house just stands on its own, right? So the first lesson that we have to take is that these pretty houses don't need to be sold on a discount, or they're not going to sell at wholesale.
Right.
So you're not going to buy one of those guys' properties at a deep discount. Mm-hmm. Unless, of course, they're in foreclosure or something like that, then that's a different story. But even then, you're guided by or predicated by what the bank is going to let you do because of what they owe on it.
Sure.
Right? Because usually pretty houses are hocked right up with loans. Oh, they're like pretty heavily debt burdened, right? So the first
that's
lesson,
why they're pretty. They spent the money on it,
right? So the first lesson today is you don't need cash to buy pretty houses. If we had a $1 million credit line, we're not going to go buy a pretty house in a pretty neighborhood that doesn't have a deep discount, right? And somebody that doesn't need us.
Yeah,
we're not going to go there. Which, by the way, what percentage of people is that when we're looking for a house on the market?
19.
No, that's for buyers.
Yeah,
I mean, when we're calling FSBOs, 95% of them are those are suspects. We call them suspects because they have a pretty house, they want all cash in 30 days, and that's the only thing they're willing to accept. They're kind of cocky about it because they can be, because they don't have to do all this other stuff that we talk about. Okay, and once you
get the right house,
once you realize this, and once you put yourself in their shoes and have a bit of empathy for that suspect, you'll realize what do they need. I mean, our whole system, which we're going to get into later, but our whole system is about helping people with their problems, right? Now, maybe there's a divorce or maybe there's a foreclosure or something like that, but those are rare on those types of houses. I mean, you get 100 houses that are in this kind of situation, that are pretty and they're in a nice neighborhood. You're not going to have that. You're going to have a handful of people that have the foreclosure or divorce or whatever.
Yeah.
Even if it's 10%, it's still not the majority.
Sure.
Okay. So for these houses, what we use when we buy them is we use options and leases, and we take over debt. right? Which, when we say take over debt, that's kind of like assuming mortgages. And I know that a lot of people kind of get their back up about you can't assume a mortgage. Well, if you do it the way we do it, yes, you can do it. Okay, we do it with trusts and all kinds of stuff. There's a very interesting way to do it. Matter of fact, politicians do it all the time. The laws are written for the politicians, not for us. And once you learn how to do that, take over a mortgage like that, and actually do it, then you're 1 in 100 that know how to do it, and the opportunity opens up to you. I mean, my first couple of years with the business, I think in the first 15 months, I had almost $2 million worth of real estate, and I put no bank loans at all. Mm-hmm. We used some deposits and we did some repairs, but it was all within my formulas, which you can learn right now. You could do owner financing, which requires little or no cash. So none of this stuff requires little or no cash. So you could do lease options, you can do options, you can do debt takeover, you can do owner financing. It all requires little or no money. And it has everything to do with staying in the pretty house arena. Now, we talk about that a lot in the other podcasts, so we're going to keep moving, okay? Mm-hmm. So when in the wholesale business, our job, when we're buying wholesale and we're buying ugly, our job is to find houses that can be bought at wholesale prices and quickly flip them to rehabbers, right? Or retailers who want to renovate, which those are far and few between, because you have to worry about them having a deposit and or having the renovation money. Sure. Okay, because so you're going to have to help me, because for some reason, I don't know what happened in my head. My mind short-circuited with this. And for some reason, I can't remember it. But I think it's FHA. Is it 201 or 401? What is the
203?
203K. Yeah.
Okay.
So you would be surprised at how many people can apply for a construction loan and renovate a house. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go into detail on this, but I did this with my daughter, and I realized that it's a whole market out there that nobody talks about. Mm-hmm. So she got an FHA mortgage and got a 203K, which is an extension of the FHA mortgage. So I forgot the numbers. So I think she paid $130 for the house and got another $40,000 for the renovations. House was worth $200 or $210 or something like that. Of course, I bought it and helped her, right?
Sure.
So my point is that even if you have no money and you have no credit, you could if you're going to live in the house, which I think Bigger Pockets calls as the BRRRR plan.
BRRRR.
Yeah, BRRRR. It's you buy, renovate, and replace.
Oh, sure.
So you buy it, you live in it, you renovate it, you live in it, and then sell it.
Well, that's a brilliant idea for somebody who's really just can't figure a way to get going,
right,
as like a second job, a second property, a third property. You have to live somewhere.
Right.
Might as well. Actually, we're thinking about this with my son now, because he's looking for an apartment to move out of my place,
right,
somewhere in the summer, and the rents are so bad. I said, geez, you know what? They're just terrible.
Right.
And he said, well, let's buy one. I said, let's find one.
Right.
And he could do that then.
Right.
And then move on.
So you can get an FHA mortgage,
yeah,
and the FHA mortgage, if you get a 203K, then they'll allow you to do the renovations and pay you so you can buy an ugly house and turn it pretty and get a slamming deal.
Mm-hmm. So they'll give you the money for the purchase and a separate loan for the renovation.
For the renovations.
And you pay that off, and it still would come in less than a rent, probably, right?
Oh, totally, yeah. Because like my daughter, I mean, she had a $220,000 house. She paid, I think, $130,000, $140,000 for it. By the time she got done, she tells me all the time she's got $50,000 worth of equity.
Sure. What's your can you tell me your payment? Just curiosity,
I don't remember. $1,300, I think, or $1,400, $1,200, something like that
for a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my point. So,
right,
because if you rent something, you're paying the owner's cost plus a couple $100, so it's never cheaper to rent something.
Exactly. And that's not even, I'm not even saying that's the play. That's just a side conversation, because that's not where you actually get the money. But the point is, if you're going to buy with a deep discount, then you can wholesale it and go, and we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. Mm-hmm. So we actually find bargains, right? This is what we get paid for. We actually find bargains and pass them along to the bargain hunters. Mm-hmm. Right? That's really what it is. And this doesn't require cash, because the bargain hunter brings the money to purchase the deal to the table.
Right.
All you need is So really, you just need the cash for the earnest deposit money. So it's $500 or $1,000, and you get that back at the closing.
Right.
And often those closings are done within weeks. I mean, we're buying a house right now that we drew a contract on, and I expect, well, it's going to be a little bit longer now because there's a little title trouble, which I haven't told you about yet.
Oh.
But I mean, we told this guy as soon as we do the title search in 5 days, we'll close. We got the money in place, and we got to pounce on it. Right? So these deals that I'm talking about, you put up $500 or $1,000. It's not like you're waiting 2 months for your money. I mean, it usually happens within a couple of weeks if you have the right bargain hunter buying the house. Right? And all you need is one or two of those guys. And because they don't have a lot of times they're contractors or whatever, they don't have the time to go out and hunt the deals.
Yeah, it's not their specialty.
Right. All right. So this leaves us with the only type of deal that needs money then is the rehab deal.
Right.
All the other ones don't need money. I mean, they need money, but we're going to talk about where to get that money towards the end of the show. But the point is that the hardest type of money to get is for the rehab. All right. And even though these deals require money, it doesn't have to be yours if you do it correctly. So that's why we talk about all the time that, education. Ron LeGrand says, you think education's expensive? Try ignorance. I mean, he says it the right way. I mean, the grumpy old guy knows how to do it. Okay.
Yeah,
he's awesome, but he's definitely
when he says it hurts.
Yeah. So let's discuss the only 4 places I think you can find money for your deals. Okay. Actually, we're doing pretty good on time. So the only places that you can find money to do deals is only in 4 places. 4 places only. I've done this for 15 years, done hundreds of deals. I don't even know how I came up with this observation, but there's only 4 places. Okay, and we're going to talk about all of them. So the first place is the banks, right? Wells Fargo, American National,
Bank America,
TD Bank, whatever. Okay. Second place is hard money, right? We're going to talk about that. Third place is private money, and then the fourth place, which is where most people don't look, but it's so common. It's like the biggest hidden secret that's the most obvious that nobody talks about, and everybody does it. The buyer. Ask the buyer for the money. Okay, so we're going to go through all those step by step, and we're going to talk about them, right? So the banks are well known for the source of the money, right? I actually call it the real estate mafia.
Hey, watch that.
Real estate mafia.
Says the Italian.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to tell your Guidos you tell them that I got the doors locked and I got the shields down and they can come by with their machine guns and their 1930 Model A Fords and do whatever they got to do.
Bill, don't worry. My godfather's in Colorado. Don't worry. But no, he does have friends in Hartford. Right, keep going.
All right, so think about it. Here's what happens at a closing. Okay? So if you've never been to a closing, pay attention because here's what happens at a closing. And this is important because this is why you need money. And if you understand this concept, it will make a lot of sense, the stuff we say after talking about the real estate mafia. Okay? Because it's a really good analogy that's so true. That it just rings true. I mean, once you hear this, you're going to be like, oh my God. Okay?
Same suits without the dark glasses.
Yeah, totally. So here's what happens at a closing. There's actually 5 things that happen at a closing. Every single closing, I don't care where you are in the United States, this happens at a closing every time. Okay? I don't care if you're buying for $1. I don't care if it's $1 million. I don't care if it's an apartment building. I don't care if it's a New York skyscraper. I don't care if it's the Statue of Liberty. This is what happens.
We saying the same team shows up?
Yes. So first of all, your realtor finds and brings the buyer. The number one problem with the real estate business is right there. Because their job, their only job, the single thing that you hire them for and pay them their 4, 5, 6% is to find and bring the buyer. Nothing else. Unfortunately, our society believes that they should be a consultant and hold your hand through the process. And ironically enough, unless that realtor does any amount of deals and has experience, and when I say any amount of deals, if you have a realtor that's not doing 50, 60, 70 deals a year, you don't have a realtor. You have a pseudo realtor. And there's a lot of them. Because the realtors that are doing 50, 60, 70 deals have figured out that their job is to bring the buyer to the table. And then they pacify you with all your questions and keep you abreast of what's going to happen next. But that's not what they were trained to do. Real estate school does not teach you how to consult your seller. Okay? It teaches you how to protect the deposit, because that's all the state regulators want, is not have the deposits stolen. Because that's what was happening when they first came out in the 50s. I mean, realtors came on board in 1949. They were around before then, but they became conjugated in an association and started living with a code of ethics and all that kind of stuff in 1949. Okay? So the first problem with the mafia is that the realtor is not really a consultant. Their sole and only job is to find a buyer and bring them to the closing table. That's it. So we get to the closing table, and there's the realtor with their buyer. The next thing that happens is the banker comes, and he brings the money. Okay, so the banker is the godfather. The banker's the one orchestrating this whole thing.
He's the one with the gold.
Right. So the guy with the gold makes the rules. So the banker is the godfather. Okay. So here's what happens now. The attorney or the closing agent, and often it's an attorney, in our state it's an attorney, but the closing agents, even if the closing agent is there orchestrating the closing, somewhere along the line, the attorneys had to draft up the documents. Even if they're using the same documents and the closing agent uses previous documents, somewhere along the line, and an attorney drafted up the original documents, even if they're used from closing to closing, which I know my attorney does all the time. When I first hired an attorney, I actually have to train them. And that sounds pathetic and arrogant and all that, but just get over it. I had to train my attorney. To this day, I still train him. Okay? There's specific paperwork I like to use, like, for example, putting a house, when we're assuming mortgages, putting a house into a trust. I'm going to tell you right now, I could literally say on this podcast, which I'm not doing, but I can say on this podcast, I'll give anybody $1,000 if they can find an attorney that can do a land trust contract the correct way. And I'll bet you I won't be able to give away $5,000. Because there's not many of them that understand it. Yeah. And the reason why is because the politicians have created these, they're like above the law, but they're law. So they don't circulate them, because if you just that one thing, just understanding how to do subject to and using and assuming mortgages and using trusts is a multi-million-dollar strategy. And it's worth listening to a guy like me and paying a guy like Ron LeGrand or whoever, or myself, whoever, to learn how to do this, because it is virtually a multi-million-dollar strategy. And I'm telling you, if you know that, then you are in the insider circle. You're one of 100 investors that understand real estate. And really all it is just understanding the documents. I mean, I have coaching clients that I have to stop coaching them because they don't understand words. You know, they read contracts and then they send me emails like, what does this paragraph mean? And I'll tell them, like, go look up this word, because I know it's that word. Yeah. And they'll go, in the dictionary. And I could tell right away whether they look it up. If they look it up, they'll call me back and say, I understand it now.
Or at least have a better question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, instead of I don't.
Or they'll be like, I looked it up and I still have the same question.
Yeah.
So we use a book called The Power of Words by Sean Clouden, and it's SEAN Clouden. You should read that book. If you before you start looking at contracts and all that stuff, you should read that book.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now, point blank, after doing hundreds of deals, the money is in the money, and the way you get the money is through the contracts. So the attorney or the closing agent brings the paperwork to protect the banker in case you don't pay. Right? So he's the thug.
Mm-hmm.
He's
the muscle?
He's the muscle. So he's the guy that shows up in your candy store, with the gun in his jacket and says, "Where's my cut?" Okay? So it's literally that. So the attorney or
And if you don't have it, there's penalties.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be more. Oh, no.
Yeah. So and they rough you up pretty good. I mean, they take you into foreclosure court. I mean, the emotional process you go through when this happens, when these thugs come around, all starts with what the attorney's paperwork is done. Mm-hmm. Okay, and
it's
I know
legal,
this,
and that's the case. You can't fight it. You
right.
signed it.
I know this because I've been to court with my documents. I've been to court every time, and even judges. I even had a judge yell at me and tell me that I was I can't even remember what he called me.
Oh, geez.
But it was a not a good idea of what he should talk to people like. Okay, I mean he was insinuating that I was a scumbag, a landlord. Yeah, and my attorney kicked me under the table, told me to shut up because he knows that I don't take shit like that. I don't care who you are, yeah. Right? And we left there, and 2 days later I won.
Yeah,
because the paperwork was right.
Hey, I won yesterday.
Yeah,
I did.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, it just happened yesterday.
Court?
Yeah, well, it was a discrimination case through the state Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, and someone had filed a complaint that it was being discriminatory, racist, and all that kind of stuff, and complaining about part of the lease that said servant. Yeah. Like, I'm nobody's servant. Like, that's not what it says. So it came down that the lease said, I mean, it was beautiful. So the lease said this. Here's the text from the landlord to the tenant.
He had a misunderstood word.
Oh, he was trying. He was trying to make a misunderstood word out of it, completely out of context. He was trying. Actually said, well, I knew he intended to make me feel bad because he put that word in. And it was a standard contract from my lawyer, standard wording, no intention implied, case closed, go away, disappear.
Right.
It was beautiful. But it was in the point is, it's in the contract. It says this. And that's what protects you because it's standard and lawful.
Good. So the first thing is the realtor finds the buyer, brings the buyer. The banker brings the money. The attorney brings the protection or the paperwork. It's not really protection, but the paperwork to make sure you're going to pay. So he brings the thugs, right? So the fourth thing that happens is the insurance guy brings the protection in case the fire, in case there's a fire or a flood, the banker is safe. He gets his money.
Yep.
Okay. And then the fifth thing is the title insurance company, when you write in title insurance, is really legally protecting when the legal beagles screw up.
Right.
Or so now what happens is you have a banker that lent money on a property and the legal beagle screws up, right? The lawyer screws up the paperwork or the closing agent screws up the paperwork. Now what happens is the banker has that property and can't relieve himself of that property until the paperwork is done. Mm-hmm.
Because there's a problem with the title.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, the house that we're buying right now, there's a problem with the guy that we're buying it from bought it from the bank, and the bank did a foreclosure, and there's a problem with one of the documents where the foreclosure wasn't done correctly.
Oh, the previous seller.
The bank.
Yeah, but I mean, not the person we're buying from. That was not the foreclosure. He bought it from the bank on foreclosure.
Yeah, so he bought it from the bank who had done foreclosure to get the house.
Yeah.
And there should have been some debt relief, on the house, and there's one document missing.
Oh.
So now what my lawyer is saying to me is either go find out if this dude's got title insurance, otherwise we're going to have to pay to go fix this, and it's going to delay the mortgage, and who's going to pay for it? So now it's hundreds of dollars to go search down. So what you need to do is go find this person, and they need to sign a document. Right? So hunting down that person is not always so easy.
Okay.
I mean, I've had to hire private eyes and all kinds of stuff to go find these people. Okay. So the point is that an attorney, because we're in a judicial state, an attorney made a mistake and now we're paying for it. So the reason why you have title insurance is if this seller has title insurance, then we'll go to a title insurance company and they'll go do it.
Got it.
Okay. So here's the amazing thing. So the reason why all these people come to the closing is to get their fees.
Mm-hmm. It's not to help you buy a house?
No. And, the realtor gets his fee or her fee. The banker gets their interest. The attorney gets his closing cost. The insurance guy gets his premium. And the title company gets their premium.
It's funny. I'm thinking, if they're only there for the fee, what makes sure that they do the job right?
Right.
Hence, title insurance.
Right.
Jeez.
So, truly, who has the biggest stake in this deal?
The buyer.
Nope. The seller.
Oh,
because
okay.
because the seller is going to get a check.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get their profit, and we call that equity in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get their profit out of the house.
Right. Yeah, the buyer can walk away, but the seller's still standing there with his house.
Right.
Yeah.
So the seller gets the most. They have the most vested interest.
Right.
Because they're trying to get their profit. Right. Who's the most uneducated?
Yeah. Right.
So what happens with most closings, and it took me a long time to realize this, is what happens with most closings is the seller is the most uneducated person in the transaction, and they're the ones supposed to be telling somebody what to do. Now, you've been on jobs where you've had a boss that knew less than you, right?
Yeah.
And what's that like?
It's painful.
It's disgustingly painful.
You don't know how to speak up. You don't know how to say anything because you get in bigger trouble. But boy, if you don't, you're still in trouble. That's
right.
It's trouble.
So you're stuck between a rock and a hard spot because you're trying to get the show on the road, but yet. So how do these trades, all do this when the most uneducated person is the seller, right? So the last thing I want to say about the real estate mafia is when you go to buy a house, what happens? You see a house in the corner, you're like, oh, I want to see that house. So you call the sign on the front lawn, and what does the realtor say? Are you pre-approved? Do you have a realtor? So they want a contract, and are you pre-approved? Oh. Go see my Guido friend down at the bank. So you go down to the bank and you get a pre-approval letter, right? And then the first thing he says is, well, these guys aren't going to lend you any money until you have insurance. You know that, right? You're going to have to insure these guys. So he says, I got a friend, and he sends you over to the insurance guy, right? And then the insurance guy might ask you, well, who's doing the closing? Oh, well, I have an attorney friend. Mm-hmm. And then you go into the attorney, and I don't know if most people don't know this, but the attorney, when he actually does the deal, he gets 50% of the title insurance. So if you're paying $1,500 for title insurance, he's getting $750. Okay? So that's why I call them real estate mafia, because they're all connected, and they're all passing you around, and it's all in the name of getting their fees. Okay? So basically, the banker's money, in my opinion, is more valuable than all the others. The banker's money is more valuable. He thinks his money is the most important money in society. In other words, like the old days where you had a king and a queen. It's like the king's money was the most valuable money because he owned all the land, right? And he would tax it. Only because they have a majority of the rules. Okay?
Yeah, writing them.
Yeah, and because the banker lends you based on your past performance, okay, he crawls up your ass and looks for every turd to make sure he's safe. Okay, so the guy with the rule makes the guy with the rules make.
You have the gold.
I'm sorry, the guys with the gold makes the rules. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's why they are. So they don't have the money. You have to realize the government has the money. And read the book, The Creature of Jekyll Island, to understand that. But our monetary system is the most illegal. The United States' monetary system is the most illegal thing in America. It is completely against the Constitution. It's a complete manipulation. It was the Rothschilds and the Chases and the Morgans and
There's some Rockefellers in there
Rockefeller, yeah, Rockefellers. It was those people that created this scam because our monetary system is a complete scam. Okay, so just go read that book, but just realize for right now that real estate and loans is the only way that they can print money and get the money into society.
That was so interesting when you first said that, the first time I heard you say that, because people pretty much know nowadays that the money's printed.
Right.
They print it, right? Yeah. And no one gets upset about that. You just can't go printing stuff.
Right. So,
but they get it into the circulation through the mortgages.
Right.
That part I didn't know.
So just if you don't believe us, just take out any bill right now, $1 bill, $5 bill, 10, 20, whatever, and look at it, and it says a note. It's a note to the
Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve. Yeah.
Before Nixon, it was backed by gold. Silver too? Silver too? Just gold.
1979, he released that.
I saw that happen. I thought, that's not a good thing. Inch by inch. You know what?
So the new gold right now is T-bonds, and T-bonds are actually real estate mortgages, bundled real estate mortgages.
Wow.
So anyways.
Wow.
Let's go on to, so we understand the bankers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the bankers are the hardest way. Jessie, my daughter, we just sold her a 2-family house. And we went 4 months trying to get her a loan. She first needed 20% for down payment. Then it was 15%. And it came down to her name being related to me because it was not considered an arm's length deal. In other words, it wasn't far enough away. Arm's length means it's far away from you. You're not related. You're not all that kind of, because the banks are afraid of that.
What's the concern there?
Skullduggery.
That you're
dishonesty. That you're manipulating the deal. So.
Okay.
But that's just it. I mean, most bankers, as far as I'm concerned, are in fear. And that's why they have an abundance of money, because they can write a check for anything they want, and that's what they do.
It's a house. It has a value. You're lending money on it. There's a value. You're not giving them more money than it's worth.
Right.
They do appraisals. So
Yep.
I guess somebody scammed them before once or twice, and they got word, and everybody has to play the game now.
Correct. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we went through 3 or 4 months with what I thought was a very skilled mortgage broker. In the end, to find out that he couldn't do it. 4 months. And I kid you not. I mean, you can, I give you Jessie's contact information. We'll bring on the podcast.
I remember when that was going on, you had to change. You got a different guy, right?
All I did was literally in an hour, I fixed the whole thing. I went and talked to one of our private lenders. I made a deal with him, which we're not going to talk about, because my daughter doesn't know what I did. And I don't want her to know, so I don't want to talk about it. And we closed 4 days later. And she now has that property. Okay, so I don't have good things to say about bankers because their fear and because they're really conservative, and to me, conservatism is a higher harmonic of fear. Okay, it's just how it works. Okay, so but that's personal stuff. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the hard money lender.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the second one. So talk about mafia style. I mean, what these guys, the juice, as the mafia calls it, which is the interest that they charge, is ridiculous. These guys are one step away from breaking legs. I mean, really, they are. They're one step away from breaking legs when they're owed, right? Actually, they're one step away from being a banker. They're actually disguised bankers.
They become much, much more like a bank than just a private company.
Right. So I had a friend of mine that had him and his dad owned a bunch of doors, hundreds of them, and I met him, and he was talking about lending some money, which I actually borrowed some money from him to buy a property. And then, anyways, long story short is they wanted to invest some money and become hard money lenders. So we were talking, and of course, I have a tribe, and I could have kept him busy. Maybe not as busy as he wanted, but the amount of money he was talking about, he was talking about at the time $1 million. I could easily kept that money working. Sure. I could have done it just myself.
That's 10 houses.
Right. So, long story short, he comes back to me and he's like, I'm going to lend you on the deal that we already made a deal on, but I just want you to know that my dad hired this guy that works at a bank. And here we go. So basically what happened was he found a bank, he put his $1 million in, and they gave him $5 million credit line. But because the bank was involved, what happened was they were playing with all the bank rules. Okay, so it was no different than going to a bank. They were pulling credit. Because one of the things you have to realize about a hard money lender or a private money lender is that they're not lending on credit worthiness. Okay, we're going to cover that in a minute.
Yep.
So,
they're not lending on your personal credit.
Right. So let's just do it now. So what makes these guys different than the bank is they're asset lenders.
Mm-hmm.
They're not supposedly, but now it's changed because when I first started, it wasn't like this. But now they lend on the property, not on your creditworthiness.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have a huge collateral in a building.
Right.
So that should be enough security for their money.
So in most cases, they won't lend for more than 75% of what the property's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's usually what the property's worth after it's fixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So understand this about lenders. So we gotta stop for a second and understand this about lenders because this is huge. All right. They want to know before anything that their money is safe.
That's all lenders. That's anybody. That's you and me too, right?
So they want to know if I give you 150 grand in capital, am I going to get back 150 grand? So the first thing a lender is going to look at is it safe and am I going to get my money back?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the more you make that possible or the more secure they feel about lending you money, like, for example, if I had a $20,000 Mercedes, it's that my mom just, we'll say a relative just passed away and I got it willed to me and I owe it for nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And I said to a lender, hey, I want to borrow $5,000 and use the car as collateral. He'll be like, well, it's a $20,000 car, of course.
Sure.
Right? I'll take the title. I own the title. When you pay me back the $5,000, then I'll give you back the title because all you need to do is go over there with a set of keys. When you don't pay, put them in the car, drive away, and the cop says you can't take the car, and you say, here's the title. I own it.
That's right.
Right? I mean, that's the way houses are too, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, except you got to go through court, but it's the same thing essentially, right? So they just want to know that they can go over with the set of keys, put them in the car, and drive the car away.
Right.
Right? That's what they want to know. So once they know that, then they want to know, then they do a calculation in their head, like how much risk is it that I'm going to get my capital back or not get my capital back?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's 99% risk free, or it's like, you know, I don't know. Maybe I won't get 150 back, but the most I could lose is 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then once they figure out what the risk is, that now enables them to put a price tag on the risk, which is how much interest you pay. Mm. Okay. So if they feel like it's really risky, then they'll put a high interest rate on it. Okay. Now, because I believe, and I know I'm going to get crap for this, but I believe that hard money guys are like thugs. Okay, they charge you at this current time. They charge 12 to 15% in interest, and they're charging
points,
one to 4 points, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay, so. That tells me that he's worried about getting his capital back. If he's charging that much interest, he's worried about having his capital back. Mm-hmm. Or he knows his money's safe and he's just being a pig. Okay? And I learned in the car business this is a crude thing to say, but it's true, right? Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And when the economy turns, which it will, it always does, the hogs get slaughtered. Mm. Okay? They get wiped out. They lose their capital. Okay? Because they're being greedy.
Too greedy.
Yeah. Okay? Now, it's okay, to be a little piggish and make your profits and want to be as profitable as possible. But there's a point where it's too much. Mm-hmm. And the way our lending goes with these hard money lenders right now, it's too much. Okay, I believe. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the 12% comes, by the way, 12%, the history on 12% is very simple. It's because it's 12 months in a year and it's 1%. So back in the day when you had the old Italian guy that didn't go to school and didn't know how to do math but had a shit ton of money, could do the math easily in his head.
He can move the dot 2 points
right.
to the right.
Right. Okay. So by the way, points.
Hey, I'm Italian.
Yeah, I know. You've told us like enough.
Twice in the show already.
Just this show. So let's talk about points. So points is interest without time. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens is normally you need to use your money before you can be charged interest.
Right.
So that's the reason why when you get a mortgage, originally they give you 30 to 45 days to make the first payment, because you have to use the money before they can charge you to use it, charge you a fee, which is the interest.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're making money, but they have to earn it. So by letting you use the money for a month, they've earned it and they get the interest.
So even though you're borrowing money to buy a house, like you're going to live in it, the money's in the house, you're using the house. Or you're using the money every month to keep the house.
Right.
Right? Because otherwise, if the money wasn't there, you can't keep the house, right? So that's why they're able. So you're always 30 days behind on your mortgage, which is a big thing to know, because when you're negotiating lease options or subject to deals or anything like that, you always get that 30 days, because if you close on April 1st, they're paying March's payment. So that means that if you took over on April 1st, minimally you don't have to pay until May 1st.
Right.
Because you got 30 days. So that gives you, when any transaction you do, that gives you 30 days to go find your buyer for free.
Right.
So if somebody deeds you the house and it costs you no money, you don't have to make a mortgage payment or anything for at least 30 days.
Right. He says you have to pay for April. He says, no, you pay for April because you lived in the house in March.
Right.
And that April payment pays March.
Exactly.
And they don't really usually realize that till they explain it.
Right. Exactly. But all you have to do is say, remember when you got your mortgage, you had 30 to 45 days before you had to pay. Well, now it's catching up to you. Okay.
Right.
So that's important to know, because that's a good negotiating factor. All right. So points are you don't need the time in points. It's something they came up with that was pretty clever. And the reason why is because if you're paying somebody 12%, right? That's an annual rate. So you would need to use the money for 12 months, right? To get to 12%. So if I was your hard money lender and I lent you $100,000, you have to use it for 12 months before I get 12 grand back.
Right. What happens if you're paying back in 6 months? It's
a prorated interest rate. Now, if you use the 1% per month rule, right? If it's 12%, you use the money for 7 months, you're only paying 7%.
Sure.
I mean, it's kind of a rule of thumb. It's not exactly that way, but it's a good way to understand it. So because some of us rehabbers are really good, sometimes we flip those houses in 3, 4, 5 months, and he feels like his money's worth more than 3, 4, 5%. So he charges the 2 or 3 or 4 points to make up for that money.
Which he can just turn on and lend to someone else for the rest of those months, but he just wants the money up front.
Right.
Okay.
So, like I said, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Okay, so there are people that do that. Now, the worst part of all this is the points actually make his return on investment in most cases double digits, like 20% or 25% when you add the money up. Okay, and that's okay when you first get started, and you are going to have to use hard money lenders when you first get started. In some cases, if you listen to the rest of this podcast, you're going to realize not in all cases, because we still have 2 more to go. Okay, so the thing that you need to understand is that the hard money guy has become too close to the banker, because now what they're asking for in today's environment is your credit score, and they want down payment money. They want skin in the game. And I hate that language. That is banker language if I ever heard it. I want skin in the game. Okay, so basically, just remember what I told you a few minutes ago. They want to make sure they're going to get their capital back, and they're trying to protect their capital. So if they make it too gross to confront, then they feel like you'll hawk your house and do all kinds of things like that, and they just don't get it. Okay, so in the beginning, you might have to use hard money lenders to get started, but I don't advise it. I mean, stay away from it. Which brings us now to private money lenders. Now, private money lenders, and this, for those of you that are still listening to this podcast, I promise you, this is the best part of the podcast. I'm going to tell you, this is where I'm going to drop the gold. I'm going to drop gold nuggets right now, like we're Hansel and Gretel, and you're going to find your way back here, because you should write these down when I go through these in a few minutes. So I'm telling you now, because I'm giving you a couple minutes to pull over to the side of the road, go get a piece of paper, because I'm going to tell you, you are going to want to write this down, because I've never, ever done this in all my lectures, all my courses, all my books. I've never given you this list. of how private lenders could be private lenders for you. I've never given you this list. And there's, let me see here. There is 10 places that private money lenders can give you money, and they don't even know it. They're right under your nose, and you don't even know it. And I'm going to tell you that this podcast should really be a workshop. In fact, when we started, I was going to call it a pod shop.
Oh,
right.
Hey, you got a new word there. Pod shop.
Yes. Instead of a workshop, it's a pod shop.
Yeah, 'cause you're not just listening. We're working here.
Right. So private lenders are private lenders for a reason. Okay. This is like the sweet spot. Okay. Now, you can't start off with private lenders always. Some can, some can't. Okay. The reason why private lenders will lend you money is because you're going to know these folks and they trust you. They're probably going to be family people, family and friends that are around you, and they're going to want to trust you. Now, some of us entrepreneurs have been through the gamut of things to make money. You know, like network marketing. What is that called? The funnel, the MLM, multi-level marketing.
Yeah, MLM.
Yeah, MLM, right?
Guilty.
Or you know, you're selling Amway, or you have an insurance thing, or
vitamins.
Vitamins. Or
Guilty.
you're going to be a mortgage broker.
No. Electricity.
Electricity.
Phones.
Yeah. So you're an entrepreneur and you've tried all these things in most cases. So to the person that has money, they can't think with that, because probably the reason why they had money is because they worked a job 40 years and they made this, they sprinted all the way through, right? And they can't think with not being secure. They can't think with not having a pile of dough in the closet in case somebody comes. They can just pay them off, and I'm telling you, they're afraid of whatever. That's why they got a pile of money, so they could just pay themselves off.
They're also afraid of unusual kind of jobs, like all these other things you just mentioned. Although they use all those products, but they get them from traditional sources, not like you sell electricity.
And there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing. I'm not trying to knock these people. I mean, I have them around me. In fact, I'm turning into one of those. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with being safe. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they may not trust you because you've tried so many things and none of them worked, and now real estate to them is just another one of those things. So it's very possible, which is what what I always say, it's very possible you're going to have to do a few deals. We have a friend, Steve, a friend of ours, that was like that, and then turned the other way, and now he has a very successful business, and he donates. He's a hell of a philanthropist, and it's gotten to a point where in the beginning he never talked to me about what I do, because I know he thought that what I do was lesser than what a realtor could do. And now what's happened is I've helped so many people, and he's seen with his own eyes that I've helped people in the church. I've helped you. I've helped so many people with doing what I'm doing. He got to a point where he tested me with a couple of his leads, and I sat in front of them, and I actually did my presentation, and all of a sudden he's like, huh. So now he just gave me 2 leads yesterday. Oh, they're not real leads, but he thinks they are because he doesn't pay attention enough. The point is that after a while, he's telling his friends, "Oh, you got to talk to Bill. This guy's a genius." And that's what he told me yesterday on the phone. He's like, "I'm telling him that you're a genius with this stuff. They got to talk to him. If anything, just talk to you." Right? So
now you had to work for that one, though.
Right. Point is that doing deals gets that security. So that's why I tell you to do a lease option or do a slot deal and get them under your belt. And now all of a sudden you start doing 3 or 4 or 5 deals. These private lenders start popping up. Okay. So that's a great way to get started. Okay. So we're going to talk about that before we end. All right. So these guys currently charge between 7 and 9%. Now here's what should happen. I don't do it because I have a family member. But what should happen, technically should happen, is if you put your private lender in first position right now in this current environment, they should be 7%. If you put them in second position, they should be 9%. Now, I pay 9% because I just know my guy gets 10% in other places, so I just paid 9 and he agrees to it. So that's the way it is, okay? All right, here we go. How do you find a private lender? That's a big question. How do you find them? Well, we just talked about it. First of all, they have to be confident that you know what you're doing. Okay, and I can help you with that. With all my materials and all my websites and meetups and podcasts, even if you just talk my language, you'll sound a lot better than doing it on your own. Okay? But once you get through that, believe it or not, honestly, the money that they lend you is right under your nose. So let's go through the list. First thing, which we do all the time, and this is no secret because a lot of guys talk about it, it's IRA or retirement money. So I know multiple people that have $200,000, $300,000, $500,000. I mean, you get somebody that works for that works for a good company and makes a couple $100,000 a year. They've been there for 10 years. They got $500,000 in that puppy, and they haven't told you. So what happens is IRAs are designed to they take the money that you put in and they invest that money into the stock market, and they try to keep a 8 or 10% return. So that's how your retirement account grows. Okay. Now your company contributes to that because they get tax write-offs, and it's usually more than what they're contributing, and then you contribute to it. So everybody wins. So you contribute to it and get a bigger fund because the employer matches you usually. And then the fund people make their fees and stuff for keeping the money invested. What most people didn't know is that you don't have to do that. You can actually self-direct your investment. In other words, you can tell them where to invest that money. Okay? And you have to have certain companies to help you do this. It's not a widely known thing, although it's getting more and more popular, but it's not a widely known thing. And if you get the right management company that knows how to invest in real estate, then you can borrow that money from your relative and here's the amazing thing. Suppose your relative's 50 years old and can't touch it till he's 59. That means you got 9 years on that money. Now, I've done it two different ways. One way is I'll borrow that money, and if I'm doing like a flip, I'll borrow it and have no payments because they can't touch the money. Whatever profits come from that deal has to go back into the IRA.
Sure.
The owner of the IRA cannot touch the deal. They can't even talk about it. It's like it has to be completely like it's another business and they're not even involved. All they have to do is sign the paperwork and they're done. The IRA fund manager has to do all that. Okay?
That's right.
So it's an amazing place. It's right under your nose and you don't even know it. Okay? So you can borrow renovation money, all that kind of stuff. There's so much to be had there. The important thing is all they're trying to do is build their retirement fund faster. Now, I don't want to get into this because we're late into the show, and you talk about Roth IRAs all the time. Roth IRAs are set up so they're tax-free. Okay, an IRA is set up for somebody to have deferred interest, so they can put the money in, up to $2,000 or $3,000 a year individually. Get a tax write-off, which means that if you made $100,000, if you put $3,000 in, now you're only taxed on $97,000. So you got a relief of that $3,000. You don't get taxed on that. And then any monies that it makes while it's growing is a lower tax rate. I'm sorry, it stays in there, and you don't pay the taxes on that until you take it out.
Right.
So if you start taking it out at age 59, the thought process is that you're not making $200,000 a year anymore at age 59. You're now making $50,000 or $100,000.
Yeah, you're retired. You don't have all that income, so your taxes aren't as high.
So it's a deferred tax.
Right. But you're kind of betting that you won't be making a lot of money when you're older. Right. I don't like that bet.
Yeah, I get it.
I like to be betting that I'm making too much.
Exactly.
I saw my parents. At 80, he had to pay pretty good amount of taxes between this, that, and the annuity. There's still money coming in. So it wasn't like, ooh, you got this big break.
Yeah. So my point is that there's a lot of that money floating around. It's invisible money. Okay.
Well, you can't touch it, can't use it, so it sits there. But you can lend it and make money,
right?
And it goes back in.
So that's the big one. That's the big fish in the pond.
Right.
Okay. The next one, number 2, equity in their houses. So you could get somebody that has equity in their house. Okay, and they could pay what? What are you paying?
4.5.
Are you paying that much? 4%?
It slipped up a little bit. The mortgages are lower right now. The home equity line's a little higher. 4.5.
So say they pay 4%. They can sell to you at 8%. right? So they can double their interest rate.
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing. You can make arrangements so that you don't have to make monthly payments. You can pay them back in one lump sum. Here's the amazing thing, that when you're doing rehabs and you're doing flips, which is the only reason why we would want to borrow this money, because we'd already talked about that, is because it's short term.
Right.
Right. So you can borrow the money for 5, 6, 7 months and then just pay all the interest in a lump sum when you get it. So you don't have to have the monthly payments and the expenses as you're going, because that's stressful. What that does is that means you have to borrow more money from them so you can make the payments.
Right.
So you're better off to borrow the right amount of money and just make arrangements that you pay it all back when you sell the house. Okay. So equity lines is a big one. Obviously, savings accounts. Those are invisible. A lot of people don't know who has savings accounts. I mean, I have a relative that point blank told me that he had $90,000 or $93,000 in a savings account just for security.
Yeah.
And I ended up borrowing $30,000 of that money because he felt like 60 was enough for his security. Okay.
That's funny.
So
most people don't have $400 to piss away.
But here's the thing: I lent that relative he lent me the $30,000 because of the deal I made with him. I made him a super hot deal. I paid through the nose, but I wanted to show him how real it was because it was our first deal, and I needed $30,000 for renovation. He made back $4,000. And she's like, "Oh my God, I've been trying to get him to let me renovate the bathroom. Now I can renovate the bathroom." Right. So what does that tell you? So, and it all worked and it was all safe. He got his money back. So, we did show and tell now. So now it's time to talk again, which I don't know if I'm going to want to do because I just don't know if I want to do that because I'm picky with my lenders. Okay. Here we go. So savings account. So that was, he had it actually in a checking account. Okay. So you'll be surprised how many people have money sitting around for security. Okay. Credit cards. So credit cards nowadays, you can get 0%. So you could buy a house with a credit card.
Yep.
I mean, like the house we're buying right now, we could literally buy that house with a credit card. Especially with 0%. And the way you do that is they have credit cards. If you're doing 0%, they give you checks to do transfers, credit, like debt transfers, because they're trying to get your debt over to them.
Yeah.
The reason why is because those 0% are lost leaders, and they gaff you at the end. So
if you don't pay it down, you're paying usually pretty good interest.
And most people can't do that. It's usually 20-something%. Okay, but you can manipulate those cards. And I know guys that go all for years on 0% because they keep their credit good. They could make good payments. But if you're doing a rehab and you can get 18 months, like Chase independent card, I think right now, Chase card, you can get 0% for 18 months. That's enough to do 1 or 2 renovations. Right?
Sure.
So even if you had to go to a hard money lender and borrow the money to buy the house, you could get 0% money on a credit card and use checks. Just write a check to yourself for the $30,000 or whatever number, put it in your checkbook, and then start distributing the checks so you can pay for the renovation. Now you got in with the money guy, the hard money guy, or with the private lender. Even if your private lender is nervous, you say, well, why don't you just fund the deal? I'll fund the rehab. Now they feel like you got skin in the game and you're good. Yeah. And then you go borrow the money from your credit cards.
Yeah. My buddy worked for a company that leased like big machinery. So he's like the banker.
Right.
So first thing out of his mouth when I asked him a couple of years back, like, how much you putting in? But that's the mentality.
Right.
It's just different with real estate. But if you have to, that works fine. Yeah. I got all my credit cards on 0 right now. Yep. All of them. Yep. A little crazy, but a lot.
It's a lot of work too.
Well, sometimes every year you have to do a juggle, but it's better than paying lots of interest.
Yep. All right. So the next thing is somebody that has good credit and can actually take loans for you. Right. So there's a lot of places
like a personal loan.
Yeah.
Sure. Banks do that.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't write this down, but I just realized that I forgot this when I wrote this. One of the easiest places to get money is to type into Google peer-to-peer, like PEER, peer-to-peer lending or people-to-people lending. Now, if your credit's not that good, you can have your private lender do that if they have good credit, which is what we're talking about right now. Have them go to one of the like Indio is a good one. Lending Tree is a good one. I should have wrote some of them down, but there's some good lending institutions that are not banks. They're people-to-people lending.
I like the idea of somebody, like I have some people in my family, amazing credit scores.
Right.
But the 401ks have some really high interest. If you borrow, it's kind of crazy through the work, but great credit, so they could borrow the peer-to-peer.
So they go to peer-to-peer, like Indio is a great one, indo.com. So you just have them go there, and suppose they get approved for $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
You'll make the payments. You'll do everything. They can actually have a second mortgage on the house, and you just pay more interest than what they're paying, or make it worth their while, or actually, hell, in the beginning, give them 25% of your profit, or 10% of your profit, or 50% of your profit. It doesn't matter. They can go get the money and be part of your transaction,
right,
and actually do it because they have good credit. Okay, another one. Credit lines and overdraft protection. I don't know why people don't think about this, but every checkbook and every bank gives you an overdraft protection. All right.
I never thought of it as being very high. I'll have a $500 line. How high can it go?
I mean, I have one that's $20,000, 15 or
I didn't
20
know
grand.
That.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. So the higher your credit score is, the more they'll give you.
Interesting.
Right. So, especially if you go to like credit unions. Credit unions love to do that. So you go open a checkbook up and you apply for I've gotten 50. I mean, at one time we had, I think, $100,000 credit line, overdraft protection.
Jeez, I didn't know that. I was using, just in case we go over a few bucks, some check doesn't cash or somebody stiffs me and I need, $500 coverage for a few bucks here and there, but not to actually use it.
Yeah.
The interest rate is reasonable.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, the one that I have is like 8%.
Cool.
Right.
Cool.
I mean, you have to it's like a credit line. You have to make payments every month. And a credit line, you'll get more money because it's secure. These are unsecured loans. These are like getting credit cards.
Yeah.
So it's the credit union's way of like doing credit card business without doing credit cards.
Sure.
Right. But just get an overdraft protection. So if you have that relative that has really good interest or is dealing with somebody already, just have them get an overdraft protection. Okay. Another one is credit union loans. A lot of people, like if you're a school teacher, there's, the unions, all those kind of stuff, union plumber, any one of those,
real credit unions.
Yeah.
For real unions.
My son-in-law, when they went to buy their first house, they went to the credit union and they borrowed $7,000 for their down payment, and he pays like, I don't know, $80 a month for it or something like that. Right. But usually those people that have those kind of jobs, like a town job or any good sized institution, will have a credit union. So just see if they go down to their credit union and just get a loan for you. And obviously you have to make it worth their while to do it. I mean, like I said, in your first few deals, make them partners, make them an equity share. I mean, like you always say, I mean, a split of nothing is nothing.
Yeah.
If you don't have a deal, I mean, if you're worried about splitting 50% of your deal with your money guy, but if you can't buy it without the money guy, then what's the sense? No,
it's just more than money. In the very beginning, you're learning how to do the business.
I can't tell you how many people. I just answered a support ticket this morning where, guys, in this past week, I've had 3 people offer to work for me for free. And they have deals. In other words, they'll give me their deals.
Yeah.
And I do the deals. They'll give me the deals. And they
want to be a fly on the wall and see everything.
They want me to give them free coaching is basically what it is. And they want to see what it is. And they don't have a problem with, like, they don't care how much money they make. They just want the education.
Sure. Well, the alternative is to pay 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand to somebody and maybe not even get a house, because we've seen that happen too much. Right. So that's still worth it. What I say to you the first time, I don't care how much, split whatever you need, just I need to learn this.
I did it with you and one other student, and that other student is gone, and you're the only one I do it to.
Well, otherwise, I'm sincere.
Yeah. Otherwise, well, I trust you. Otherwise, you got to be in my coaching group before I would even consider it.
There's a simple lesson out there for any person being supportive. I mean, I'm a supportive person. If I'm in a business, I'm the second guy in the business. I'm number 2, and I'm making sure everything's working. I'm supporting the first guy, everybody else. The thing to do is, if you want help from somebody, help them too.
Yeah.
Don't be an idiot.
Yep.
Don't just see what you can squeeze out of people. Help them back.
Right.
The more you help them, the more they help you, and things go better.
And you help me a lot.
Duh, you help me. You help me out. It
number
works both
7.
ways.
So number 7 was credit union loans. We just talked about that. So number 8 is 401k loans.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people don't know is if you take a withdrawal, it's a tax liability. But you can actually borrow money against your 401k. And there are actual, depending on the 401k, there's actual guidelines and rules on how much you can borrow. And I can't tell you how many buyers that are buying from me on a lease option, I get them to go borrow from their 401k to buy the house.
Right.
Now, that's a different story. But in this case, especially if we're talking about you get a hard money lender or somebody else to put up the money for the house.
Yeah.
Right. And
you need the renovation money.
Right.
All these other methods are perfect.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, like the house we're buying right now was not that much money. You know what I mean? You buy a $30,000, $40,000 house, you could buy that with a credit card almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can do the 2 of my cards.
Yeah. Okay. So 401k loans without withdrawal. I mean, without withdrawing it, but you borrow the money against it.
Yeah.
Here's another one that most people don't think about is lawsuits. So there's 2 ways you could do that. If you have an unsettled lawsuit, you can sell the lawsuit.
Right.
Or if you have a lawsuit, people will get, there's a lot of people that don't understand money and might get $100 or $200,000 worth of money. And because they suck with money, you're actually doing them a favor because they'll go out and buy cars and boats and all kinds of liabilities. And by convincing them they should give you their money, then you'll make them more money and keep their money safe.
Yeah, and dole it out little by little, not all at once.
Exactly.
Not those folks, sorry.
And then the last one is businesses with cash or cash flow, or business lines of credit, that kind of stuff. But if you have a pretty lucrative business, I mean, I have friends that have very lucrative businesses. They can use all of these methods in their business: credit lines, overdraft. I mean, overdraft protection. My friend has a business and he's got $100,000 overline protection on his checkbook, and he could easily lend that money to me from a business. Especially if I have an LLC, it's one business to another, and it could easily be done. So there's a lot of people that have lucrative businesses and actually don't know what to do with the money, and they're just socking it away. And besides, those are better people to deal with anyways. They're more savvy.
Yeah. So the cash flow funds the loans,
right? And
the loans produce more income and more interest for them and more cash for more cash flow.
Could be.
Wow. Well, don't screw up.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So and those are the guys that are going to want to be 50-50 partners with you. Those are going to be the guys that are going to be, they can have like this side business that could make them 10 or 20 or 30 grand a year, and all I have to do is supply the cash, which they have anyways. These are businesses that have, gold credit cards and, bronze, platinum, American
Visas.
Express cards and stuff,
Like best what you said today is that somebody with a good credit score can pull these loans for you. If because I put stuff out and my credit score pops down a bit when I use some of my own money on instead of borrowing my own line of credit, but then someone else can do it for you,
right?
And they can make money just signing a piece of paper,
right?
I like that,
right? Okay, so the important part here is that they feel safe. They need to feel safe, and you're willing to go way above and beyond to do that. You can't, it's not about money. You have to give up profits when something happens. You have to give up profits or have to give up money that is not right to give them. But sometimes you have to do that. I don't know. Like I just did a closing on a deal that I had for some time, and I made a few $100s off of it, literally. Actually, a few $1,000s if you look at the whole deal. But I closed and did all the work, and my private lender, I mean, I paid one private lender 20-something thousand. The other one was $4,000, $4,500. But the object is that I got the money back in the till.
Yep.
So now I can go do it again. Now we just bought another house, and I mean, I screwed it up, not them. So I just paid. I was paying, for the inspection. I was like doing things in the deal, not to make my profit. Instead of being cheap and blowing the deal up, I was extra lucrative, which was my own money. I mean, if you look at it, I got cash from the closing, but it was nowhere near how much money just in the closing. It cost me more than that for the closing. The money that I got in the closing, it cost me more than that. But I put the money up because I was protecting my money, guys.
Well, they're golden goose, geese. You want to protect them.
So the golden goose, the lazy egg, you don't want to shoot them.
Nope.
And so...
Don't steal the eggs either.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be Abbott and Costello. This isn't a comedy routine here. Hey.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is that I went above and beyond to make sure that they were protected.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just sometimes you have to cherish the relationship more than
the deal,
the money. Yeah, the deal. Mm-hmm. Right? Because
there'll be more deals down the road.
Right. Exactly. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to the last one, which is the buyer. This is the last. This is the fourth place you're going to get money as your buyer. So here's the funny thing. I get sellers that will belittle me when I talk about doing terms. Right? Like, I'm lesser of a person because I don't want to bring all the cash to the table like they want. And when I'm on the phones and I'm doing...
I remember that conversation. One guy.
Yeah.
Well, what they don't get is we're not buying one house. We're buying 2, 3, 4, 5, 10.
Well, it doesn't matter what they get. They're the guy that we talked about in the beginning. They're the guy with the pretty house. Mm-hmm. They have all the money. They don't need us. Mm-hmm. They don't need... And the more you can understand that, they don't need us. So that's the difference between a prospect and a suspect. A prospect wants your help. Mm-hmm. A suspect doesn't need your help.
No reason to be rude, though.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my point only.
So rude. Oh my God. Emma was laughing at me the other day because I was checking my messages when she was at my desk, and I put a sign on somebody's house on Highland Avenue. I don't even know where I put the sign. I put the sign out myself personally because I've been doing all that stuff lately.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like doing undercover boss. I'm kind of like doing things myself just to see, because some things aren't right and I want to find out why. So I'm kind of like going through it again.
Yeah.
And this guy read me the riot act, and I have your sign. And if you can dare come to my front door and ask me for it, I'll give it back to
you. Please, mister, can I have my sign
I got a finger on my hand that I'm going to give to you right now, okay? Because I could care less.
And it ain't a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's not a thumbs up. No. All right.
Ooh. Bill, don't go back to that house.
If I knew where it was, I'd go put another sign out.
Bill, put 2.
Yeah, exactly. I'd put him on his neighbors around him and one across the street, and not put it on his... No. I used to do shit like that. Not anymore. All right. So here's the funny thing. Is those are suspects. Those are suspects, right? But here's what really happened that you need to understand, and when you understand this, then it kind of lightens up the whole industry, okay? What the realtors did in 1949, well, September 13th of 1949, they copyrighted the word realtor. Mm-hmm. And in September of that same year, October of that same year, they became an association, 1949. That's how they started getting strong, okay? Prior to that, the banker might have lent you money, but it wasn't as I call the real estate mafia right now, because they weren't all connected like they are now. Okay, so before 1949, how many houses, how many pieces of property, how many farms, how many tractors and cars, and how much of that business was done? A shit ton, just like right now. There was still a lot of houses. There was still a lot of farms, a lot of properties, a lot of cows, a lot of horses, all kinds of stuff.
People were doing stuff before we were born?
Yeah.
Living and actually doing things?
Exactly.
Amazing.
So the point that I'm trying to make is that, the real estate that we do, which is the lease options and taking over mortgage payments and, buying owner financing and taking over debt and all that kind of stuff, has been around for a lot longer than the realtors. The difference is the realtor came on board and said, hey, I can get you your money in the next 30 days. So they would find a buyer and then go talk to the banker and get the banker convinced that it was a good deal and actually help the buyer get the loan. That's how it started in the beginning. It's not like that now, right? So what the banker did is he made all the sellers believe that that's the only way to do it. There's no other way to do it, because they're the only game in town, because there's so many of them, and because it's so legal, because the attorneys got involved and the bankers got involved. They forced the realtors to be very legal. They forced them to be such a big entity so that they could protect their money. Right? So the bankers are the ones that created this whole thing, because the one thing that you want to drive a banker crazy, if you have a banker in the family, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. If you have a banker,
I know you are. I'm just waiting for it.
If you have a banker in the family and you go to a party, you know how you drive them crazy? Tell them how much equity you got in your house.
Because he wants it?
That's their objective. I actually know that for a fact.
heard
There's
that
certain
recently.
banks that their main objective is to get all the equity out of all the houses, because 34% of the country is free and clear. Of the United States is free and clear. So their job is to take the equity out, because the banker knows the most secure place he could put his money and get interest payments is on real estate.
You know, you think naively that banks are there and you're here, and if you need something, you go say, hey, can I have a mortgage on my house, or a second mortgage, or a home equity line of credit? But no, they sit in meetings and say, how can we make more money? Where is the money? Well, how do we get it? Let's put ads on TV. Let's put ads in front of the bank. Let's put ads in front of the bank as you do your shopping. Home equity line of credit only, or second mortgage only. They're really doing it to get more money in their coffers.
So think of it
and you
this
can't
way.
blame them as a business, but
Think of it this way, and then I want to move on.
yeah.
I used to travel 40 weeks a year for 6 years. I worked for a company that I consulted automotive repair shops and was pretty good at it. Okay. And I traveled all over the country and parts of Canada. And I'm here to tell you that every city that I went into, because there were always cities, because we did seminars on the weekends, every city I went to, the tallest building in the city had a bank name on the top of it. So by far, bankers, when it comes to money, are the biggest institution. Okay. Now pay attention to this. Just think of this one thing. If bankers have all the money and stock market's so good, how come bankers don't put their money in the stock market? Now, individual bankers might, right?
Yeah.
But they don't invest in that
At all.
What do they invest in?
Housing.
Right? They invest in property.
Same reason we're doing it.
So the guys that have all the gold, invest
Make
in
all the rules.
land and edifices, which is a house or a property or a building, and an edifice is a building. Okay, think about that.
Real estate, isn't that a scam? Yeah. See, you get into real estate? Well, I look outside and all I see is buildings everywhere I go. Commercial, office, apartment, homes. That's all I see. So why not?
Right.
They change hands, so let's have some of that be our hands changing it.
So now pay attention to this. We're off on the banker again. I'm gonna
How do we get back on number one, Bill?
Reel it back. So the way that our sellers, the ones that we deal with, are able to get top dollar from us is with delayed cash outs. Now, delayed cash out means that we can pay their monthly payments and their expenses and assume all responsibility, do all maintenance, pay all the taxes, insurance, do all that stuff until we can pay them off. So it goes no more or no less than this. Mr. Seller, will you let me make payments until I can pay you off? You don't say in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. You just ask them, will you let me make payments? So what we do now, which we were doing a lot of, and then I realized some months ago that we were asking them to do that, and the way we were asking it made it sound like they were giving us something and we weren't giving them something back. So I put in there, if I pay you top dollar, will you allow us to pay you until we can get you paid off?
Right.
So the benefit is there too, because if you just say to your seller, will you let... What does he get? Why would he do that? Because he knows he can go to the bank and he can get the money, and he can go to the realtor and they can get the money. So what are we giving them? So essentially, my bad example is, it's a bad example, but it's the only one I can think of, so that's why we keep talking about it, is if I pay $1,000 cash for my computer, if we go down to the Apple store, and yes, I'm a freak about Macs, so you can make fun of me. Everything I own is a Mac. And don't even tell me there's another kind of computer because I won't hear it. So if I go to the Apple store, I'm going to skip right over that. I'll get support tickets on it. But you go down to the Apple store, and if I pay $1,000 cash for my computer, how much should I pay for the computer?
$1,000.
Okay, so if I put it on my credit card and pay it over 24 months, how much am I paying?
$1,272.
Yeah, more than $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? So why wouldn't you do that with your seller? If you're asking for time, give them more money. So here's the amazing thing that most people do not understand is that 81% of the population right now looking to get a loan does not qualify, or looking to get a house. 81% of the population looking to buy a house can't get a loan.
Yeah, and that's looking, not just the general population, the ones that are looking.
Right, for property.
Wow.
So that's a big number. So what does that mean? They have a desire to buy the property, and the banker has told them, you have a colorful past, and you can't get a loan.
No.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So those people are willing to pay a premium price for the property that you have if you sell it to them with no bank qualifying. They're willing to pay that premium price. Now, because they're willing to pay that premium price, you can pass that along to your seller and give them top dollar. Mm-hmm. Okay? So it's important to understand this concept, because when you're talking to your buyer, I was just negotiating 2 condos, which I lost. Oh. Because I was pushing it too much, which is fine, because I realized that the guy, every time I talked to the guy, he kind of gave me agita. He's a gruff old, like making me feel like I'm a piece of shit. He was an old-time negotiator. Him and his brother bought a bunch of condos. His brother died. He's selling them all. So that tells you where this guy is. Mm-hmm. Right? He doesn't want to be bothered with. He's
smashing the piggy bank and he wants it all.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't have any. It's mine.
So, the bottom line is that he doesn't need the money. He consistently tells me, I don't need the money. And I hear that a lot. I mean, I have a $270,000 house that we're in the middle of closing right now. It's a completely pretty house. Just got divorced. Had to pay his ex-wife. We actually went under Rocket Mortgage and refinanced his house. Right? He's got $60,000 worth of equity. I'm buying for $225,000. After we structured the loan together with Rocket Mortgage right on his computer, we did this together. We structured a loan right on his computer with Rocket Mortgage, and got him the money he needs to pay off his car, to pay off his wife, ex-wife, all this stuff. And he's still got $60,000 worth of equity. I asked him how much you want for the house. He said $225,000. It's worth $270,000. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you right now, once I get that house and I sell it on owner financing, it'll be $290,000.
Sure.
Okay. So hello. Mm-hmm. I can afford to pay more than $225,000. He asked me $225,000. That's why I'm paying it. But here's the point. His payment's $1,600 a month, and I structured that payment with him, right, to get his loan. Mm-hmm. I'll get $2,000 a month for that. Yeah. $2,100 a month for that. Okay? And I buy the house subject too.
Did you restructure? Is that the one you restructured because it was a 15-year mortgage?
No. I restructured it because he only owed $80,000.
But he wanted to pay up all those things.
He wanted money from me to go to pay off the ex-wife and pay off his car, to handle the divorce.
Sure.
And he just wanted to move on.
So you just did it with the mortgage.
So instead of going out and raising a private money lender and doing a closing and paying him, $225,000, I'm like, well, what if? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And we did all of that, and he's excited about doing the deal. I mean, I haven't closed yet, and God knows what happens, but that's what we did.
It's amazing. What I like about your deals is you can recombine them and just be creative with, what if we do this? Okay, how about if we do that? And find something that works for the guy and works for you. I mean, he's happy. You got a sweet deal there.
The point is that he doesn't need the $60,000. So I can't come to the table and say, well, I'll give you the $60,000. That's not a benefit for him. The benefit for him was, it's a clean deal. He's out in a couple weeks. He doesn't even have to take the furniture. He could leave his ex-wife's clothes in the closet because she hasn't taken her shit. And I can go in and I'll take care of everything. And the thing is he can take his crap in a pickup truck. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the crap, but it's crap. We all have crap. Yeah. He could take his stuff in a pickup truck. He can go to his buddy's house and destimulate. Get out of the house. Quick. Bang. See you later. Yeah. Done. Over. Okay? So 81% of the population can't afford or can't buy with a bank. So they need no bank qualifying. That's why that language is so important on our signs and everything, because it's no bank qualifying.
Right.
Okay. They'll pay a premium price. So now you can offer your seller a premium price. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the seller could take monthly payments until we can get our buyer qualified for a favorable mortgage. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass on all of the expenses, all of the maintenance. We're not going to be a landlord. We're not doing rent. When I say rent to own, because they're going to be an owner. They're cutting the grass. They're plowing the snow. They're doing all that stuff. Mm-hmm.
They're practicing being the owner. In their own mind, they are.
Yeah.
This is my house. Yeah, we're doing this. We're doing that. Then I'm going to own it.
We used to put that in our advertising to test drive the house for a year or two before you buy it. Mm. Like, put your kids in the school system and, be part of the PTA and, go down to the YMCA and the grocery store and test the neighborhood out before you buy. We used to have that marketing campaign, right? So if the seller doesn't want to pay any fees, which we know could be between 12 and 15% closing costs, if he doesn't want to pay any fees and he wants to sell for top dollar and as is condition and on the date of their choice, this is the way to do it. Now, here's a question for you, Peter.
Yes, sir.
When a realtor sells a house, where do they get the money?
Bill? They take it out of their back pocket and hand it to the guy because they're such good-natured people.
What's the name of that realtor? Where do they get the money?
Buyer.
So
and the buyer gets in the bank, but the buyer gets it.
So the buyer gets the money. So why are we any different than a realtor? We're going to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Why are we saying we need to get the money? We don't need to get the money.
No, we're not buying the house.
The only reason why you need to go get the money is because you have not educated yourself on creative financing.
Early in the show, I mistakenly said, "Oh, you get your money from the seller." What I realized just talking is you get like the credit from the seller in a sense, not the money. You get the credit from him.
That's right.
He allows you to wait. He's giving you credit, and the money actually comes.
And you
from the
pay
buyer.
him.
The seller never hands you the money. The buyer hands you the money.
Right.
So you get credit from the seller.
That's a good way to put it. So not only do you get
credit,
it's
you know why? It's seller financing. So you're getting the money from him, right? No, it's not money.
Right. It's credit.
Yep, that clears up my mind.
And what the seller gets is he gets top dollars, and he gets his solution solved immediately, which nobody else could help him solve because they don't think like us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with an option to buy or rent to own, or otherwise known as a lease option, let us take over the debt, or owner financing, you can buy these pretty houses. Right? And none of these require big deposit, credit, or risk if you know how to do it. Mm-hmm. The only thing you need is an education on how to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not here to sell anything because I don't do that in this podcast, but people ask me for things, so that's why I say. So if you go to flippinghouses4rookies.com, click on courses in the top right-hand corner, we have a course called How to Buy Real Estate Without a Loan. It goes through every aspect, every little thing. There's 36 videos. I've had people watch those videos. They're all 15, 20-minute videos that are very explanatory on how to buy these houses. It shows you how to find them. It shows you how to negotiate them. It gives you scripts, contracts, how to sell them, the whole thing. This course was made for an acquisition manager that works for me. This course was made to teach one of my staff members how to be my employee. This course is not something that you will find anywhere else as explicit as this. Mm-hmm. I've had people come into this course and within months, 10, 12 months, make $250,000. I've had people come in and do deals and make $30,000 in months. Mm-hmm. It's everything you need, and it's $500.
Yeah, you made an important point, pointing out to folks that it was for like people like me, other people that work for you, because I know talking to other people that spent money, there's always something missing in the course that you have to go back and buy something else. Right. Now you can always get more help, learn more stuff, but it's all in there. Everything you need is actually in there.
And because I am Bill, the real estate deal maker, if you go to the courses page, I actually give you an opportunity to give me an option deposit and pay me as you go. I actually do that. There's actually payment programs on there, so you don't have to come up with all the money.
You're lease optioning the course, Bill?
Lease option. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm lease optioning course. All right. So I want to think here for a minute because there was something I wanted to say. I had an important factor I wanted to say. I should have wrote it down. So the important thing is that your seller is going to give you the credit, like you say. That's a great way to put it. And your buyer is going to pay for it.
That's so cool.
So all you're going to be is, as Ron LeGrand calls it, a transaction engineer. You're going to find your buyer, you're going to find your seller, and you're going to put the two of them together. Mm-hmm. And the only way you could do this is to be educated. And I'm telling you that my course that I just told you about for $500, completely, utterly, it gives you all the paperwork. It gives you everything you need. and you're completely educated. Okay. Now, will it make you me and do multiple deals a month? No, but it sure is a good start. It's $500. I mean, come on, give me a break. It should be $2,000. It really should. I mean, I think see what's in there.
I think it should be 10.
Yeah, when you see what's in there, I mean, we're buying some courses now because we want to know what other people are doing, and I'm amazed at how much they are and how little you get. No wonder why people are like going crazy. I
think the problem is people don't believe it. Well, it can't be that good for only 500. But our philosophy is like a chicken in every pot, a car in every driveway, and you don't have to overcharge for something once you build it.
Henry Ford's philosophy is every American should have an affordable car to drive. Yeah. So I'm off of that philosophy. I believe every person should be able to make extra income and have a way to learn it. And I've made it an affordable way for everybody to learn it. Okay. So I'm suggesting that you get trained, invest in you, because you don't need to invest in real estate. You need to invest in you. All right. And I suggest that you get trained and you know how to become a creative realtor. A real estate person. I just remember what I missed.
Yes.
So what happens is most people, because 81% of the country can't get qualified for a mortgage, right? Well, guess what? 81% of our listeners can't qualify for credit to buy real estate courses.
Oh, geez, you're killing me.
It's the same people.
Well, how many times have I said, well, us folks that get into real estate is because we're damn broke and we need some money. So, it's not like we don't have money to throw away like that. We need to way to bootstrap ourselves up inch by inch.
So that same law applies to our investors. 81% of our investors can't get a loan or can't get funding to buy real estate.
So do they use their friends to fund this? Do they get their friend to buy the course for them?
So I'm not talking about the course. I'm talking about 81% of people that want to be real estate investors can't get funding to buy the property with a bank.
Right. That's right.
So if you can't get funding with a bank to buy real estate, then you need to learn how to be a creative real estate investor, which is the alternative, which is what we teach, which is what I'm very good at, because when I started, I couldn't get a bank loan, and I had to learn the creative real estate ways.
Well, even with a bank loan, how many properties could you buy in your loan?
Right.
I have a couple of my students, the parents. Pete, we bought a house, blah, blah. It's a duplex, and we're going to make money. How'd you buy it? Oh, we put 20% down and got a bank loan.
Right.
So how much are you in for, and how much are you making? I mean, I can't see spending $20,000 to make $200 to $400 a month.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather spend $200 to $400 and make $20,000. You got it reverse, Bill.
Right.
So, but they don't know any better. So, in 5 years they'll buy another one, and in 5 years they'll buy another one, and someday they'll be old.
Ron LeGrand says it best. You think education's expensive? Try ignorance. So you have to be educated. So if you're not doing real estate transactions, the things, and you're having trouble finding money. I mean, this podcast was long. I mean, we're an hour and 40 minutes in. That's a long podcast. Okay. But it is truly the way to find money in real estate. We've covered that today. If you listen to this podcast is going to be a staple for us, because I'm not going to keep doing this, teaching people how to get money. That's why it's long. I could have made this a paid webinar.
Yeah, but that'd be a teaser. This isn't a teaser.
This is not a teaser. This is an actual workshop. This was a workshop.
A pot shop.
Pot shop.
Bill.
We would do this in a meetup. And we would sell this for like $89 or $79, come back on Saturday, and we would sit in a room and we would like do this and then film it and charge you for a course and all that. I didn't want to go through that. I have way too much going on already. I don't need to do this. I have content that we've been working on that I haven't finished, and I don't want to go make another product. So this podcast is my contribution to the industry on where to find your, what is the name of it? How to finance your first real estate deal.
Yeah.
We have given you enough information that if you listen to this and you understand this podcast, you will find the money. The money's not the problem.
As many times as you said some of this stuff, I caught stuff today that was just a game changer for me.
Right. The money is not the problem. The problem is you need to find a deal, because I've told many coaching clients this, and they've one-on-one, 100% of the time, always come back and tell me, oh my God, I had no idea how true that statement is. What you need is a deal. When you have a deal, the money that's hidden, the 401ks and the savings accounts and all these credit card balances that are zero, all these type of hidden funds show up when the Greek glands swell, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start buying $150,000 property for 40 grand, right?
Yeah.
What happens?
Mm-hmm.
You get partners coming out of the woodwork.
Well, I don't know about you, but I never hand money over for nothing.
Right.
I hand it over for something.
Right.
So you have to have something
Right.
to sell.
So get a deal, and all these other things we're talking about, you will be freaking amazed. And I have, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, there's all kinds of stuff there. There's free stuff there. There's another podcast where we actually walk you through the stages of a business. There's tons of stuff you can do before you buy anything from me. So I encourage you to just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and go find out what you need. There's support tickets there. If you hit the contact button on the top, I answer all the support tickets. Unless it's technically related, then, like how the website works and all that stuff, then it's Emma. Okay, so my gift to you, I hope you enjoy it. Over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.